Let me ask you something. When was the last time midnight on December 31st actually felt like a new beginning? When was the last time you woke up on January 1st feeling transformed, renewed, ready to be a different person? For most of us, the answer is never. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. New Year's Day, you wake up with the same problems, the same debt, the same relationships, the same anxiety, the same unresolved issues you went to bed with. Nothing has changed, except the date, and maybe a hangover. So you start the new year exactly as you left the old one, tired, overwhelmed, pretending that somehow, magically, this year will be different. But it won't be. Not because you didn't make resolutions, not because you didn't try, but because real change doesn't happen at midnight. It happens quietly, slowly, in the unsexy middle of ordinary days. And some people already know that. That's why New Year doesn't feel special to them. Not because they're cynical or depressed, but because they've stopped pretending that a calendar flip changes anything. They've learned something the rest of the world is still trying to sell you. The transformation doesn't come from fireworks and countdowns. It comes from showing up every single day, even when nobody's watching. And once you realize that, New Year becomes just another night. Not in a sad way, in a free way. Because you're no longer performing excitement you don't feel. You're no longer forcing yourself to celebrate because society says you should. You're no longer pretending that this arbitrary marker in time means something it doesn't. You're just existing, quietly, honestly, on your own terms. And that honesty feels better than any champagne toast ever could. See, here's what happens when you stop buying into the hype. You stop feeling guilty for not celebrating. You stop wondering what's wrong with you for preferring peace over parties. You stop forcing yourself into crowded rooms full of people pretending to be happy. Because that's what most New Year celebrations are, performances. Everyone's dressed up, smiling, toasting to new beginnings. But if you look closely, you can see it in their eyes. The exhaustion, the uncertainty, the quiet desperation of hoping this year will finally be the one. And for people who value authenticity, that performance is unbearable. They can't fake enthusiasm. They can't pretend the clock striking midnight means anything more than the clock striking midnight. They can't cheer for a fresh start when they know tomorrow will look exactly like yesterday. So they opt out, not out of bitterness, but out of honesty. And society judges them for it, calls them boring, antisocial, depressed. But they're not depressed. They're just done pretending. Done pretending that forced joy is the same as real joy. Done pretending that a date change is the same as personal growth. Done pretending that celebrating with strangers is better than peace at home. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. Because you've tasted something rare, the freedom of not needing external events to feel okay. You've learned that real celebration doesn't come from noise. It comes from gratitude, from reflection, from quiet moments of recognizing how far you've come. And those moments don't happen at midnight in a crowded room. They happen alone, in silence, when you're finally honest with yourself. So while everyone else is out chasing the illusion of a fresh start, you're home. Not because you're missing out, but because you've already found what they're searching for: peace. Now, let's talk about why New Year feels so empty to so many people. First, it's manufactured. The excitement, the pressure, the expectation that this night has to be special, it's all marketing. A way to get you to spend money on parties, drinks, outfits, travel. A way to sell you the idea that happiness is something you purchase, not something you cultivate. And intelligent people see through that. They see the industry behind the celebration, the corporations profiting off your desperation for meaning, the social pressure to perform joy you don't actually feel. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Second, it's based on a lie. The lie that time is linear, that the past is behind you and the future is a blank slate. That midnight on December 31st is a magical reset button. But it's not. Time doesn't work that way. You carry everything with you. Your trauma, your habits, your unresolved pain. A new year doesn't erase that. It just gives you a new number to write on checks.
So people who don't celebrate aren't being negative, they're being realistic. They know that real change requires work, daily, unglamorous, exhausting work, not a countdown and a kiss at midnight. Third, it's performative. Most New Year's celebrations aren't about joy. They're about proving you're having joy, posting the photo, being seen at the party, making sure everyone knows you're not alone on the most important night of the year. But people who value authenticity can't do that. They'd rather be alone and honest than surrounded and fake. So they stay home, not because they're lonely, but because solitude feels more real than pretending in a crowd. And here's the thing, they're not missing anything. Because the truth is, most people at those parties are just as empty. They're just better at hiding it, better at smiling through the loneliness, better at pretending the noise fills the void, better at convincing themselves that this time it'll be different. But it won't be, because you can't party your way into a better life. You build a better life in the quiet, in the decisions you make when no one's watching, in the discipline you practice when it's just you and your thoughts, in the slow, steady work of becoming someone you're proud to be. And that work doesn't start on January 1st. It starts whenever you decide to start, which is why people who don't celebrate New Year often have a deeper relationship with time. They don't need a special day to reflect. They reflect constantly. They don't need a new year to set goals. They set goals whenever they're ready. They don't need fireworks to mark progress. They measure progress in quiet, invisible ways. And that approach to life, steady, intentional, unglamorous, is what actually creates change. Not the countdown, not the resolution, not the champagne, just the daily choice to show up. Now let's talk about the people who do love New Year. And I'm not judging them. If it brings you joy, celebrate. If it feels meaningful, embrace it. But for many people, the obsession with New Year reveals something deeper, a need for external markers of progress, a need for permission to start over, a need for validation that this year you'll finally get it right. And that need is exhausting, because it means you're living in the future, always waiting for the next milestone to feel okay, always believing that then you'll be happy, when the year changes, when you lose the weight, when you get the promotion, when you finally become the person you think you're supposed to be. But people who don't celebrate New Year have learned something crucial. Happiness isn't found in the future, it's found in the present, in accepting where you are right now, in making peace with the messy, imperfect process of being human. And once you do that, you don't need a special day. Every day becomes a quiet celebration, not the loud, performative kind, but the deep, grateful kind, the kind that whispers, "I'm still here," and that's enough. So if you're someone who doesn't care about New Year, you're not broken. You're not missing some essential human experience. You're just operating on a different frequency. A frequency that values substance over spectacle, reflection over distraction, peace over performance. And that frequency is rare, because most people are terrified of stillness. They need noise to feel alive. They need events to feel like their life has meaning. They need external validation to believe they're moving forward. But you don't. You've learned that life happens in the spaces between the celebrations, in the ordinary days, in the quiet mornings, in the moments when no one's watching and you're just being. And those moments, they're more sacred than any New Year's Eve party could ever be.
Now, here's what people misunderstand. Not celebrating doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you don't appreciate life. It doesn't mean you're nihilistic or cold. It means you found a different way to honor time, a way that doesn't require fireworks, a way that doesn't depend on crowds, a way that's quieter, deeper, more personal. Maybe it's waking up on January 1st and taking a walk, reflecting on the year, thanking God, the universe, or yourself for making it through. Maybe it's journaling, writing down what you learned, what you survived, what you're proud of, even if no one else saw it. Maybe it's just resting, allowing yourself to exist without pressure, without expectation, without the exhausting demand to be joyful just because a calendar says so. And that rest, that quiet, intentional rest, it's more healing than any party,
Because real renewal doesn't come from noise, it comes from stillness, from giving yourself permission to just be. Not better, not different, just present. And when you live that way, you don't need New Year to feel hopeful, because hope isn't tied to a date. It's woven into every ordinary day you choose to keep going. So if you're reading this and you've never understood the hype around New Year, know this: you're not alone. There are others like you, people who'd rather sleep through the countdown, people who find more meaning in a quiet cup of coffee, people who've realized that celebration is a personal choice, not a cultural obligation. And those people, they're not missing out. They're living intentionally. While everyone else is chasing the next big moment, they're finding depth in the small ones. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not how many parties you attended, not how many resolutions you made, not how loudly you celebrated, but how honestly you lived, how present you were, how much peace you cultivated in the chaos. And if that peace looks like staying home on New Year's Eve, then so be it, because you've learned something most people spend their whole lives searching for, that every day is a chance to begin again, not just January 1st. Every morning you wake up is a fresh start. Every moment you choose differently is a new beginning. Every breath you take is proof that you're still here, still growing, still becoming. And that's something a calendar can't give you. That's something you give yourself. So forget the countdown, forget the pressure, forget the idea that you need to feel something special just because everyone else is pretending to. Just be you, quiet, reflective, honest, and know that your way of honoring time is just as valid as anyone else's, maybe even more so. Because while the world is shouting, you're listening to yourself, to what you actually need, to what truly matters. And that quiet wisdom, that's worth more than any celebration. So here's to the people who don't celebrate New Year, the ones who see through the hype, the ones who choose peace over parties, the ones who know that real change doesn't happen at midnight. You're not broken, you're not boring, you're not missing out, you're just awake. And in a world full of noise, your silence is a gift. So embrace it, the quiet, the solitude, the freedom of not needing external events to feel whole. Because while everyone else is waiting for January 1st to start over, you already know the truth. You can start over any day you choose. And that power, that's something no countdown can give you.